It's midday on the 25th of September 2019. This is my take on the Sun square Pluto and the Moon square Pluto in the natal birth chart. The Sun is one's sense of core, identity, uniqueness, individuality. Pluto is about transformation, but a square is an angle of 90 degrees that creates an energy of challenge and difficulty. It also releases enough energy into the chart where over a period of time and through repetition of challenges, that energy can then be changed from challenge and difficulty into something positive, but only through hard work and direct experience. And any contact between the Sun and Pluto brings a great deal of intensity and depth. But when it's a square, the capacity for challenge is amplified. There'll be constantly changing blockages in the person's life, whereas as soon as one problem is sorted, another problem of a similar form or nature pops up to take its place. A repetitive pattern of almost self-destructive potential can be seen, represented by similar challenges arising from different environments and suggestive of a refusal in the person to look at the side of oneself that to the rest of the world seems to be glaringly obvious. There's going to be a recalcitrant attitude towards certain situations, and the more these situations demand change, the more stubborn the individual may become, refusing change point blank, no matter what the cost. And here lies the basics of the Sun-Pluto square. The willingness to self-sacrifice or to even die rather than compromise, which is very noble and honourable, but it's also very good at shooting oneself in the foot and self-sabotage. This normally only is the case where there's been a lot of self-repression during youth. But there's always the essence of the potential for elimination in the character, which others may see as somewhat indelicate or even ruthless. Bloody-minded is a good descriptive term for this aspect. But this is the challenging side of it. There is a positive side as well. Alongside this incessant and resolute compulsion to never give up lies an energy that not only becomes apparent as one grows and matures, not only in age, but in terms of intelligence and self-awareness, but it translates as the ability to constantly seek to improve oneself. To an almost primordial urge to purge, cleanse and purify oneself in what seems to be an increasingly polluted world. And gradually the individual in this aspect will realise that the winner of the rat race is simply the biggest rat. It does bring a more subtle desire for refinement as one ages. Not so much for the aesthetic or artistic, but certainly the focus, the specific and the effective. It's sharp. This person will get to the very bottom of what's going on by acting in a dispassionate and clinical way. And it can save lives and favourably alter futures. Perhaps not in a way that other people would prefer, but it's certainly very efficient and effective. There's always going to be an innate urge with the Sun square Pluto to do something. And if this person can delve into their own unconscious, deal with their own fears, then they become incredibly efficient and effective at being a major catalyst for change in their lives and the lives of people around them. The ability to manifest situations through increasingly refined highs and lows gives detailed understanding of all types of clinical behaviour, of psychology, criminology, any type of scientific investigation. Sun square Pluto, it doesn't in itself make you psychic, but it gives a deep internal sense of knowing, of what can be summarised as gut feel. And it can be both recognised and consciously worked with, and thus the individual will be seen as having very good judgment of character. Whereas with the Moon square Pluto, the Moon is about one's day-by-day dealings with the world. It's about one's lifestyle, feelings, emotions, sensitivities, habit patterns. The Sun is masculine and projective. The Moon is feminine, receptive. So with a moon square Pluto, it's very potentially subversive with a lot of difficult, dark, deep energies, which sometimes all hell, sometimes literally, can break loose. It's very, very sensitive to emotional undercurrents in the domestic sphere. And regardless of their gender, the person with the moon square Pluto may find that they constantly have difficulties with certain important women in their life. It can be a lack of clarity or emotional transparency in the relationship with the main female influence, normally, but not necessarily the mother. There can be the spectre of emotional abandonment here, feeling isolated or uncared for, or even worse, unwanted. It's not uncommon in the cases of emotional abuse, sometimes other forms of abuse, but often emotional abuse, where you're constantly reminded of your worthlessness. This is hardcore stuff, no mistake. And sometimes, at an extreme, people with the moon Pluto square strongly can confuse pain and degradation with love, to almost to the point where it becomes sadomasochistic. If these people sweep unpleasant childhood experiences under the carpet, then they can become emotionally fragmented and unable to sustain good emotional patterns in life. This is one of the most common astrologically repetitive aspects, in that it appears in successive generations' charts until eventually one brave soul will face up to the fear and deal with it, regardless of pain and abuse. There's going to be a fear of the dark, physical and metaphorical, when young. But as the individual matures, this unconscious fear of darkness can persist until consciously accepted and allowed into one's life, often dealt with best in adult years by going through some type of personal psychological analysis or some type of shamanistic ritual. When Pluto deals with the deep psychology, the moon deals with emotions and feelings and sensitivities. And when these two forces are at war with each other, it can produce scarily accurate perception that borders on the truly psychic. But at the same time, that this perception can be so skew-whiffed that it can be not so much psychic as psychotic. The challenge here is to face fears and phobias, knowing that you can't understand them, you can't logicalize them, you can never work it out, ever. But you can accept it, you can be felt and then released in a loving and self-acceptive and sensitive way that also has an element of firm, disciplined behaviour. This is who I am, warts and all. I'm doing my best. If it's not good enough, fine, there's the door. Never going to be good enough, always getting better. It is the willing elimination, not of the childlike side of the nature, but the despotic infant, that is being asked here. To use one's emotional insights for the psychological benefit of all, as opposed to just oneself. Moon square Pluto people can bring into this life a degree of emotional warping. And sometimes it's only by asking those true few good friends and family their honest and true opinion that these people get real objectivity. If you've got the moon square Pluto in your chart, it's one of the hardest aspects in astrology. It gives you scarily accurate perception. It gives you excellent ability to be forensic, clinical, disciplined and focused in what you do. But you have to deal with your own childhood issues, your own fear stuff, and it's better to scream and cry and release rather than to become embittered and to fester. Bring out the animal. Scream. Go down to the beach at 3 a.m. in the morning and scream into the waves. Go into the forest at night and yell, roar. Plug your fingers like a electric plug, into the ground for half an hour. Get in touch with your primal side and realise that fear itself, false energy aggravating resistance or resentment, the only thing to be scared of is fear itself. It's fear of not anything or anyone, but fear of fear. Fear of being scared, fear of being afraid, fear of the unknown and the unknowable. And once you realise that being dark does not mean being negative, you've dealt with your fear. Catch you later, world. Bye.